It was supposed to be a joyful milestone. The kind of day you remember forever. Your hand on your wife's belly, the screen flickering with the first real images of your unborn daughter, and that beautiful sound. Her heartbeat, strong and steady. But instead, I was standing graveside, holding one end of my grandfather's casket. The ultrasound was scheduled for Wednesday at 10 a.m. The funeral, the same time, the same day, same hour. The universe had drawn a cruel line down the middle of my life and told me to pick a side, and I chose death. My name is Mark. I'm 26. My wife is 25. We're expecting our first child, a daughter, due in November. And until recently, we were both floating in that golden haze of early parenthood. The names, the nursery, the kicks through the belly, the joy of talking to someone you haven't even met yet, but already love like you've known her forever. 3 weeks ago, we set the date for the 20-week ultrasound. A big one. That's when you check all the baby's anatomy, the brain, the spine, the heart chambers. Some call it the gender reveal, but for us, it was much more than that. It was the first real look into who our little girl might become. But that same week, another timeline quietly began to close. My grandfather, my dad's dad, began slipping. Slowly, then all at once. For the last week and a half, his health declined like a leaf falling in slow motion. We all saw it, felt it, and I had a talk with my father. He told me the funeral would likely be held within a week of his passing, depending on when it happened. He didn't want to speculate too much, but he wanted me to be ready. So, my wife and I had a discussion. She said she'd stay home with the dogs. We wouldn't need to board them. I could go alone to my father's hometown, about 4 or 4.5 hours away, if it came to that. It made sense. It was just a possibility anyway. But then it happened, late one night, or maybe early morning, depending on how you tell time when your heart breaks. My grandfather passed away. I called my father the next morning. He was holding it together as best he could. You never really brace for losing your father, even when you expect it, even when the body starts giving up before the soul does. Still, it wrecks something in you. And then he told me the funeral would be held Wednesday, 10 a.m., exactly when we'd be seeing our daughter on that ultrasound screen. I told my wife gently. I said I'd still like to go, and that maybe we could FaceTime during the appointment. I knew it wasn't the same, but I was trying to hold both truths in my hands, birth and death, joy and grief. She looked at me, visibly upset, and said, "Yeah, but this is your daughter." I didn't say anything for a moment, because what do you say to that? That your grandfather, the man who taught you to fish, who sat on porches with you telling stories from before you were born, suddenly means less than someone who hasn't yet drawn a breath? She was angry, hurt. She said she couldn't believe I was choosing a funeral over our daughter. And I didn't know what to say, because neither of them asked to be placed in this impossible comparison. Neither of them deserved to become a symbol in this brutal emotional tug of war. I knew she had every right to want me there, and I wanted to be there. God, I wanted to be there. But this was my final chance to say goodbye. My only moment to stand beside my father as he buried his father. My one opportunity to carry that casket, to literally carry part of our family's history to its resting place. And yes, there will be more ultrasounds. There will be pictures, appointments, a delivery room, tears, a first breath, a first cry, a first time holding her in my arms, a million moments with my daughter. But there will never be another moment with my grandfather. And the thing is, she knew. She had already said she wouldn't come. She'd stay home with the dogs. She knew I might have to go. She knew this was coming. So why now? Why did it become a betrayal? I suggested we try to reschedule the appointment. She refused, said we'd already waited long enough. And yes, technically, the appointment was already past 20 weeks. It would be closer to 22. But it was still in the window. It was still reschedulable. Dozens of people online said the same, hundreds even, that a medical appointment could be moved, that a funeral couldn't, that this wasn't just about me saying goodbye. It was about being there for my father. But to my wife, it felt like abandonment. She saw me choosing grief over presence, choosing the past over the future. She didn't say those words, but I felt them in the silence that followed, in the coldness, in the do what you want that didn't sound like freedom, but like exile. I didn't want to fight. I didn't want to hurt her. I wanted her to feel supported, safe, cared for. I wanted to be two places at once, and the pain of not being able to do that felt like punishment for something I didn't choose. So Wednesday came. I wore my suit, packed a change of clothes, took the long drive north through a landscape that blurred with my tears. I thought about my grandfather the whole way, about his laugh, his firm handshake, the way he always called me champ, even when I felt like anything but. I pulled up to the church early, walked into the quiet, saw my dad, his eyes hollow, red, trying to be strong for everyone else. I hugged him, and we both broke. During the service, I kept checking my phone in my pocket, just in case she called, just in case something went wrong. But nothing came. I never even got the pictures until that night. I carried the casket. I stood by the grave. I shook hands and heard stories from people I hadn't seen in years. People who remembered me as a little boy at my grandfather's knee. People who said he was so proud of you, so excited for your baby girl. And I wept. Later that night, I got a few text messages. One had a blurry image of the ultrasound. One had a note. Everything looks fine. But no FaceTime, no video, just distance. When I got home, she barely looked at me. And I get it. I do. She was scared, hormonal, maybe even hurt in a way she couldn't explain. Maybe she imagined this ultrasound would be magical. The two of us clutching hands, crying tears of joy, talking to the technician together about tiny feet and fingers and heartbeats. Instead, she sat in that sterile room alone. And maybe it felt like abandonment. But I sat in a room full of grief and caskets and cracked voices giving eulogies. And I felt the same. So, am I the asshole for choosing to say goodbye to the man who shaped my life over a 1-hour appointment I begged her to reschedule? For trying to honor both life and death in the only way I knew how? For not being in the room when our daughter's heart was measured, but being there when my grandfather stopped beating? I don't know. Maybe being a husband and a father means you'll always be torn between two loves, two loyalties. Maybe no matter what you choose, someone will say you got it wrong. But I did what I thought was right. I showed up for the end, so I can fully show up for the beginning. And I can only hope that someday, when our daughter asks why Daddy missed that ultrasound, I can tell her the story of a man named Grandpa and how I learned to carry love, even in loss. This story, it's not about choosing between family and fatherhood. It's about how impossible those choices can be when life gives you joy and pain on the same day. On AITA Stories, we don't just tell these moments to judge them. We tell them because they reveal something deeply human. Grief and joy are not enemies. Sometimes they show up arm in arm. Sometimes the people we love don't understand our pain. Sometimes we don't understand theirs. And in the space between that misunderstanding, relationships either break or deepen. So, what would you have done? Would you have stayed? Would you have gone? Drop a comment and let us know. And if you've ever had to choose between two people you love, tell us what you learned from it. Because these stories, they're not just stories. They're reflections of us all. And that's what makes them worth telling.